Okay, so before we dive into the main subject today, I just want to, I'm very mindful that I don't want to give you any misinformation today. So everything we will be discussing relates to the council's primary procurement system. It doesn't matter if you don't know the name of it. It's called Oracle. And if you don't know the name of it, chances are that's the one that we use to send purchase orders to you. We do have some smaller satellite procurement systems, and a very small percentage of you may also receive purchase orders from those systems. So those systems are Matrix, Northgate, Rock, and Simology. And you can see in the grey bracketed text exactly which areas they relate to. So if you don't provide any goods or services relating to those specialist areas, you can relax, because the potential conflict won't apply to you. If you're still in any doubt, I'm going to be sharing with you a copy of a Oracle purchase order in 2 or 3 slides time, and we're talking specifically today about invoices that relate to Oracle purchase orders. And I think as soon as you see the document format, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Okay. Okay, so we talked about what's out of scope. So what's in scope? So you should all be here because you, at present, you post your invoices to our PO box in Sheffield. So that's PO box 306 Sheffield. Okay. I've got a detail of one of our purchase orders here. The header's missing and the body text, but you can see the invoice to field. So that should be familiar to you, and that's the instruction on the purchase order asking you to send your invoice to Sheffield. So that's the as-is process, and that's what will be changing. Okay, so that address will be closing ultimately. I'm just going to compare the as-is process with the to-be. So at present, you all submit your invoices by post. You don't necessarily need to know that we have a subcontractor, but you could probably guess because you're posting them to Sheffield, and your invoices are processed there and come through to the London Borough of Camden as digital transactions. The software that provides that to us is called Finastra. And you'll be replacing submitting invoices by post by submitting PDF invoices by email. So no longer will your invoices be lost in the post, and processing times will clearly improve significantly. Those PDFs, they will have text recognition applied to them. You may or may not be aware, but the invoices you were posting to us had text recognition applied to them. Clearly, a PDF will have a higher recognition rate than a scanned image. So again, you'll see improvements there. Just for sake of clarity, the present process has been in place for about 10 years, and it's quite acquired a few nicknames. So you may know it as Sheffield, Scan and Capture, OCR or Optical Character Recognition, or simply as Finastra. Just to say that they're all the same thing, and if you just recognize any one of those descriptions, you're definitely in the right place, and they'll all be replaced by automated invoice processing, AIP. Basically, in a nutshell, it's optical character recognition applied against a PDF. Okay. These are just 2 very simple schematic diagrams to show you what's changing for us. Really, you can treat the process as a black box, but I just want to dwell on this briefly so that you can understand why there'll be benefits for you. So at the moment, we use a separate piece of software called Finastra to process your invoices. So even though you're sending them in the post, they're actually being scanned, text recognition is applied, and then they are transferred to our main financial system, which is Oracle. And you can see in the second diagram that we're doing away with Finastra entirely, and you'll be submitting your invoices, even though you're emailing them to us, they will be going straight into our finance system. So the two, no longer will we have two systems that are reconciling with each other periodically through the day. Your transactions will be coming straight onto the system that your requisitioners, the Camden officers ordering goods or services from you, that they use. So it's a much more secure delivery of your invoice and more dependable, and they will be able to see, you'll be able to see their receipts in real time, any new purchase orders in real time, and similarly they'll be able to see your invoices very quickly as well. Okay, so I just want to give you some assurance here. So probably the most risky change isn't sending invoices by email. That's pretty straightforward. But probably the greatest risk for you as a supplier is in the transition between the two processes. So this slide is about how we're managing that risk for you, or with you, should I say. So you'll see in the second column the number of suppliers. We have 3,375 suppliers that submit their invoices via Sheffield at the moment, the same process as all of you. If we look at the second row, tranche 1, you'll see that just 26 suppliers submit almost exactly a third of all invoices. And then if you look at tranche 2, you'll see that 81 suppliers submit almost 22% of the total invoices. So in summary, just 107 suppliers submit the majority of their invoices via this method, or of the invoices via this method. All of the suppliers invited to these sessions fall into tranche 1 or tranche 2. So you're on the call today. If you look at the final column, you'll see that those 26 suppliers have they'll be using the new system from the 7th of next month. What that means is for a full week, those 26 suppliers will have dedicated access to the help desk for this transition. So we consider the high volume suppliers to be the most at risk, and obviously we want to look after your cash flow for you. So consequently, that's why we've tiered it. You're all invoicing at least once a week, if not more frequently. So we would expect tranche 1 to have largely successfully submitted an invoice by the time tranche 2 goes live a week later. And similarly, you won't be competing for support for that first week. You'll have dedicated access to the help desk before we grant access to the remaining 3,000 plus suppliers. They'll be getting access sometime mid-January. So both tranche 1 and tranche 2 will have quite a long period where we're able to provide you with more support. Okay. Okay, so I promised you an image of an Oracle purchase order. So this is the look and feel of all of our Oracle purchase orders. Okay, so we're talking about any invoices that you submit to us by post against these purchase orders. Another way of recognizing that it's an Oracle purchase order is the purchase order number. So it's numeric and it's 8 digits long. Okay. Probably, if you remember one thing I share with you today, it should be the green dotted box on this slide. So once you have transitioned to the new submission method, we will flick a switch in our systems. Your purchase order invoice to address will change. So, and it will say email invoices in PDF format to, and then it's got our AIP, automated invoice processing, invoices at camden.gov.uk. My colleague Benyam will walk you through exactly what happens when you send your invoices to that email address after I've finished my section. You also see at the bottom of the invoice to box that it's got our website and the page with all of the help desk resources for you. Okay, and very shortly I'll give you an overview of what they'll be. Okay. So just to be aware, keep an eye on your invoice 2 address over the course of the transition period. I know it sounds obvious, but just in case, any purchase orders that predate the cutover, even if you're viewing them digitally, they will have the old invoice 2 address. So just be careful of that. Okay. Right. So as you saw a couple of slides ago with the schematic diagram, your invoices will be going straight into our finance system. And what that means is that we can grant you access to the Oracle supplier portal. So Oracle just means Camden's main financial system. Okay, so you'll be able to log in to that and have a personalized view specifically for your business. Once you've logged into the supplier portal, you'll be able to view and download purchase orders, view your invoice history, including if they've been paid or if they're held, and you'll be able to view your remittance advice, not just the remittance advice from your transition date, but the remittance advice ever since you started trading with Camden. And within the supplier portal, you'll also be able to maintain your supplier record. So the bank account we hold for you, the email addresses we hold to send your remittance and purchase orders to, and similarly, your bank account, trading name, that kind of thing. You'll be able to check to see that we've got the right record for you, but you also will have the access to change that data should you need to. Okay. Right, so here's the support model for the transition. So this will be in place from the 7th to the end of February. In terms of the, sorry, I got ahead of myself there. The help desk, the telephone help desk will be in place till then, and the website will be there from the 7th indefinitely. Okay. So you might recognize the URL in the big green box. That's the same one that will be on your new purchase orders after your cutover date. And by following that, you'll be able to access user guides and videos. Typically, the videos will be 60 to 90 seconds long and quite bite-sized, just so that they're digestible, and then you can very quickly apply what you've learned. Should it be just checking your remittance, that kind of thing. In parallel with the website, we'll have a telephone help desk. The help desk is specifically for suppliers like yourself, and it's also specifically there for this transition period. So by calling that number, you'll be given 2 options. Option 1 will take you to the help desk team for logging on. So almost certainly you'll be talking to myself or one of my immediate colleagues. So that's when you log on to the supplier portal. Obviously, you won't need that to submit your invoices, but we do recommend that you log on so that you can gain the additional benefit. Also on the help desk, once you dial in, if you press option 2, you'll go through to the invoicing help desk. So in all likelihood, you'll go through to my colleague Beniam or any one of his colleagues. Okay. So that phone number will be there till the end of February. In addition to that, you will receive invites, so standard Outlook invites, to attend telephone surgeries. So we will have a live help desk. They generally will run for 2 hours, and there'll be a representative of the 2 branches of the help desk on there, so they can assist you in real time. You don't have to turn up at the start of the surgery. You can drop in at any time in that 2-hour period. Okay, let's have a look. Right, so I'm just going to step out of the slides and I'm going to go into the example user guide that's on the screen at the moment. And I just want to give you assurance of the style and the quality of the support materials. So we'll just take this one as an example. So this is the user guide for logging into the portal for the first time. So this is where the guide you'd need to follow to access your purchase orders, invoice history, remittance advice, etc. So let's just pull that up. Right. So all of the guides will have a very similar look and feel. Scroll down. We have a couple recommendations before you log on. So the software has been tested with Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome. So if you use a different internet browser, maybe Internet Explorer, if you encounter problems, you can simply come here, click on the hyperlink, and you can download one of these free-to-use pieces of software. Okay. In addition to that, we recommend that you enable pop-up windows in your internet browser. You don't need to worry about that unduly, but if at any point the screen doesn't behave as you expect, that would be the first thing I would check. Okay. Again, we provided hyperlinks, and you can go straight to the web page to learn how to enable pop-ups for each of the types of browser. Okay. Right, so that brings us to logging on for the first time. So either the day before or on the day that we switch you on to the new process, or switch you to the new process, you will receive 2 emails from our financial system. And the most important one will be the Oracle Fusion welcome email. So Oracle simply means Camden's financial system. And Fusion just means it's in the cloud. Again, apologies for the technical terminology. So once you see the word Oracle and welcome, that's all you need to know, really. Once you open that email, you will find a hyperlink, a long one, dead center in the email. And if you click on that, oh, sorry, I forgot to say that hyperlink will expire after 5 days. So that is part of our security protocols. If your link does expire, we've got a way to reset it on page 7. But again, we do recommend you log in the first week that you get that email. So clicking that hyperlink, it will take you to a reset password screen. Pretty self-explanatory. So you type in a password of your choice, retype it, and submit. Slightly confusingly, it won't take you straight into the system. It just jumps to the login screen. And this is the login screen that you'll use every time thereafter to access our supplier records for you. Okay. And you would type in the email address that you received the welcome email to, and that email address will then become your user ID. And then obviously the password would be the password you just keyed on the previous screen. And clicking sign in will take you into the system. We do recommend that you add this particular page to your internet browser favorites. And should you need it, the URL is here at the top. Okay, so if you were to work through systematically through the guide, it's there ready to copy and paste straight into your browser. Okay, we come to the next page. So once you log in, if you log in with any regularity, you're all fairly frequent suppliers, so I'm guessing you would like to see the balance on your purchase orders and see your remittance advice. Once you log in, this is the screen you'll see. It'll say either good morning or good afternoon, and your name will appear here. I'll just walk you through some of the icons on the screen. If you ever get lost, the home icon is very helpful, and it will always take you straight to this screen. And similarly, the bell icon is very helpful too. So the first time you log in, you will have a 1 against your bell icon, and if you click on that, there will be a welcome message. Thereafter, if you request any changes to your supplier record, say change your bank account, the bell icon will again let you know when that's been completed for you. Okay. Probably the most important icon is the orange one here, the supplier portal. So by clicking on that, you will access all of the extra functionality that I've mentioned. Okay. Again, at the end of the guide, we've just got the hyperlink to our website. So that's the same page that's on the purchase order. And there'll be guides and short videos along a very similar vein in that location. Okay, so that's a very high-level overview. I hope you feel a bit more at ease about the transition and the support that we're able to provide. I'm just going to hand over to Benyam, and he's going to take you through the second half, which is best practice for submitting your invoices, and give you a window on exactly what we do with your invoice documents once they reach us. Over to you, Benyam. Okay, it looks like we lost Benyam. Let me see if he's available.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
Thank goodness, it's my earpiece. Okay, afternoon everyone, and thank you, Daniel. I'll start off with by thanking everyone for attending. We really appreciate this, and I'll start sharing my screen now. So if you bear with me one moment. Okay, is my screen visible, Daniel?
Yep, that's come through fine.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so as Daniel's given you an overview, what I'm going to be taking you through is going to be the invoice submission process within our AIP, or automated invoicing system. So I'll just take you through it slide by slide. Okay, so the first slide here is showing you a general overview of the business process involved, who the players are within the process, just to give you a flavor of where your part falls in and where our part falls in the whole system, and also at the same time, I'm hoping that it will highlight how simple the process is. Daniel has already given you some of the benefits. You can most definitely go paperless now completely. No more posting invoices to Sheffield. So if I quickly start on your lane, which is the supplier lane, your involvement, physical involvement in the process, comes in part when you're going to be emailing your invoices in PDF format to the email address that you can see here. So aipinvoices@camden.gov.uk. That information is also going to be, provided in support materials and an array of other documentation. So one example being the purchase order invoice to section will always indicate what you need to do and how you need to submit your invoice. There are a few validations a few things, prerequisites that we would require of you before you submit your invoices. And again, Daniel's touched on some of these, and I'll be going into more detail with some examples for you to have a look at as well. But the key thing is obviously PDF format. Your invoice needs to be clear and in a tabular format. And we'll get to see some examples of this. And obviously, most important of all is that you always need a valid purchase order before you can even submit your invoice. This, the PO is a key player in this. So without a PO, we're unable to actually process your invoice, and the system won't be able to pick it up in the way it should be doing. So that's one thing to note if you don't remember anything else. PO, which I'm sure you know at this point anyway as well. Right, so once you've submitted your PDF quoting a valid purchase order, your transaction will then fall into our lane, the purchase to pay lane via Oracle. And as Daniel's just stated, Oracle just means it's our financial system. Whereupon once it arrives, it will be checked to see if it has a valid purchase order. The invoice quality will be checked, and provided it meets those requirements, then it's forwarded into our Oracle AP via the Oracle Web Center, which is again not something you'll have to worry about. That's what we do internally, but you can help us by ensuring that you meet the standards with regards to the invoice. So once it's been forwarded, it's run through an import process upon which, once it's finished that, a purchase to pay officer will step into the system and they will review your transaction, your document. One thing I forgot to mention, but luckily Daniel's actually mentioned in terms of the system, is when your invoice is being forwarded into the Oracle Web Center, it's the same technology that is being used that you would have known with Finastra, OCR. So there is an optical character recognition picking off all the specific details from your invoices. That sort of lines up with what HMRC would expect your invoice standard to be as well. So that's pretty much programmed into the system, if you like. But yeah, so once it's been forwarded into the Oracle, then we run the import process, and a purchase to pay officer will then go into the system and review your invoice side by side with the transaction that's been picked out by the OCR system. And so the better quality your invoice is, the less fiddling that we as a purchase, we in purchase to pay have to do with your invoice. And the smoother the transaction is, which obviously ensures that your invoice is paid in a timely manner as well. So that benefits you. So once a purchase to pay officer has reviewed your transaction, it will then be validated by the system. If there's any further action to be performed by your requisitioner or buyer, then they will carry out the necessary amendments. So if you can see the lane here, amend or receipt their purchase order accordingly. If there isn't anything that they need to do, then it's a straightforward case of the payment process occurs, and it feeds back into your lane where you can see you will receive a remittance, and your payment follows through shortly. Just to completely close it off for you, in an instance where your requisitioner does actually need to make an amendment, then once they've carried out the amendment, it should validate again, and provided they've done their job correctly, it will lead back to the same place here where it's basically back to your lane where your remittance is received and your payment follows through shortly as well. So that's just to give you an overview of the system, the business process, and what you can do to make sure that it runs smoothly in a nutshell. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide. So the next slide is showing you the email address that you're going to be forwarding your invoices, attaching your PDFs, ensuring that they have POs, and then ping it in an email. And that email is AIP invoices@camden.gov.uk. Yeah. Right, okay. So again, I've touched on these things, but I can't stress the importance of these things. So the first point you see there is a PDF document. Now, as I stated, and Daniel's touched on this as well, it just has a better chance of reading your invoice if it's in PDF format. However, I understand, some of you might be using various different softwares to make your invoices, whether it's Excel or Word. If it's an Office package, then when you are completed, when you have finished creating your invoice in the format that you normally create it, you simply need to go to the File, Save As, and Save As PDF function, and that will save your document in the format that it needs to be on. On top of that, there is also links that we will be providing for free software, free converters within your support material. So that's also available to you, and if it doesn't cost you anything, So that's another way you can go about it as well. But for the most part, I'm sure most of you will probably be using an Office package. So that's, the save as PDF function should be available to you. The next bullet point, good quality. We are actually, the next 2 points, I should say, good quality and tabular format. We're going to be looking at examples of what I mean with regards to this, but I'll just touch on it. The good quality aspect of it comes in that, you don't have handwritten stuff on your invoices. You don't have stamps all over the place on your invoices. Your document might have been photocopied several times and it's lost the quality. So that's what we would refer to as, ensure you don't fall into these bad practices and keep your invoice in good quality. The next part, the tabular format, is how you structure your invoices. So if you have, for example, a description on an invoice, you align it perfectly with the value of that description or the item or the service that you've provided. But that will make more sense to you when I show you a demo of an example. Right. And lastly, must quote a valid purchase order number. Unfortunately, even prior to this system, AIP, even as you know it in Finastra, you need to provide a purchase order for us to be able to process these invoices. But it's even become more important now because the system functions on this core value that it needs to find a purchase order, and in order to be able to process your invoices. Right, I'll move on to the next. And the next slide is an example of an invoice we've created for you just to give you an idea of what we consider good format. And we've gone a little deeper than that to sort of show you levels within the good format as well. So the next few slides will clarify that. But yeah, so you can see this invoice here is pretty clear in its design. It hasn't been photocopied multiple times. Everything is, viewable and structured in a fairly good way. So, you have purchase order and then you have your purchase order digits. So it's been labeled fairly well, invoice number, and then clearly stated out. Now you can see all these things that I have circled in green indicate that, this is a good quality, and that's why we've said as such. However, you can see there's a little bit of one thing that probably prevents it from being an excellent copy, if you like, and that is that this invoice has for professional services in relation to consultancy, and you can see there's nothing aligned to it. It simply relates to the second line, the Yoda training for 3 hours, and you can see why that's what we would have expected. You either align your professional services in relation to consultancy and merge it with the second line to have a straightforward, clear, viewable invoice, whereas in this case there might be a small chance that the system picks this off as another line, or potentially mixes up the descriptions. It might have professional services and then the net value, and then the Yoda might be left out as a result. So I'm just giving you examples of why it is to just it would be a good idea to align things perfectly. Right. So I'll move on to the next slide. Right, so now this is an example of an even better formatted invoice. As you can see here, the supplier name is written out in clear. Invoice number, date, purchase order, clearly stated, very viewable. It's not about whether it's bold or not. It's just that, it's well spaced out and clear to read. And you can see in the invoice the to section, this invoice is designed with the correct information, AIP at camden.gov.uk. So remember just one thing I need you to note is occasionally, sometimes you as suppliers might engage with your buyers, and the buyer might ask you to send their invoice direct to you, to them. By doing so, I just wanted to let you know you would be delaying your payment. There's nothing wrong with sending them a copy of their invoice, as long as you've done your part as the supplier to submit the invoice through the correct process as stated on the purchase order. Yeah, so that's just something to note for yourselves. But yeah, moving on, you can also see that this is in a perfect tabular format. You've got do it yourself, perfectly aligned with quantity, unit cost, the unit cost, and then you have your total net total there as well. So it's just to give you an idea, you know, good alignment. You don't want indentations or the lines not aligned properly, basically. And that just better enables the OCR system to be able to pick it correctly. And obviously P2P will have to make minimal amendments, if at all, when your invoice is this good. And that just means that your invoice meets the payment terms that we have in place for you. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to a bit of what I would consider a bad formatted invoice. And I'll quickly highlight one thing. The first part, although there is a purchase order, one thing I would say is obviously that this is a bit clustered in that the purchase order is just pretty much, you know, a part of the address, or looks like it's a part of the address. So, you know, it would be good practice to have purchase order and then your PO in maybe a separate column or, you know, a separate section, just so that it's clear and viewable. So that is one of the faults I would pick up on this invoice, although it has a purchase order number. So you know, we have noted that you've met one of the most important criterias in that you have a PO, but also placing it in the right place would help the system better pick it up. It doesn't mean that it won't pick it up. It just means that more amendments will have to be done by a P2P to make sure that the invoice image is aligned correctly with what the system has picked up. And the other section that's been highlighted is in red, and this is an area where I would actually say it's a bit of a not low quality in terms of the, you know, whether you can see it or not, but it's just the information that's put in there. So you can actually see on here that there's a lot of things that can throw off this the system. You know, there's reference to a previous balance from the last bill. You know, credits since the previous bill. So an ideal way to put this is, even though it is in tabular format, and I'm not going to dispute that, you'd have your description and everything that relates to that specific invoice, and you know, laid out in proper alignment with the net value that you're charging Camden, basically. So this is an example of an invoice where you have too much information on it, and it just increases the chances that the system might pick off some parts or elements that it shouldn't have picked off. Right. I'll move on to the next slide. So this is the worst possible format that we can receive in Camden, or purchase to pay for that matter. And if we did receive an invoice like this, the only thing we could possibly do is really return it back to you and ask for a clearer version than this. So as you can see from the get-go, the ink is half out, and that it's starting to fade. You can't see everything correctly. You know, the net amount, just, I guess, yeah, it's handwritten. You can't make anything out, and it doesn't even quote a purchase order number. So that's failed in all instances, basically. So something like this, we'd have to return back to you and say that you know, you need to resubmit. Don't worry. The good news is it's not any one of your invoices. This is just something that we've picked off the internet, just to give you an idea of a huge no-no. Okay, I'll just move on now. So I'll summarize what we've seen, you know, what we've looked at so far. So with regards to invoice submission for payment, so you have a unique email address. So AIP suppliers will email a copy of their invoices to aip@camden.gov.uk. Just bear in mind that this is a no reply email, so you're not going to get a response from it. And ideally, I would advise that you know, you just submit invoices. Well, not ideally, it's a must that you only submit invoices into this email. I know some of you will have another email for purchase to pay. So you can carry on putting in any statements or requests, or queries that you have for us in there. But when it comes to submitting your invoice for actual payment, you just submit your invoice on there. And yeah, just a key thing to remember, just don't send anything in there. Right, so the other part we covered, invoice format and quality. So all invoices must be in PDF format to be accepted and of good quality, and all invoices must quote a valid purchase order. So that's straightforward, and the latter one you're well versed with. Right, so imported to Oracle. Invoices are imported into Oracle once every weekday morning by a purchase to pay officer. So that's just to give you an idea of the frequency of when we import them. So if you, yeah. And the last point to point out is payment. Invoices are paid according to your usual payment terms. And obviously, no purchase order, then we can't pay you. And I think I've stressed that out enough throughout this session. Just one thing I will mention, one other thing I wanted to mention with regards to the last bullet point is if you do have a perfect quality invoice and you submit it and it's gone through the system, it doesn't mean that you're going to get paid early. That's we still adhere to your payment terms, but getting it in good time is advisable. Even if it's on our system as due, it will eventually hit its due date and then it will go out to you. Better to have it ready to go out on the system. Yeah, right. Okay. So the next few slides I'm going to take you through are going to sort of highlight the benefits you actually get out of having access to our Oracle system. So at the beginning of this session, if you remember, Daniel sort of showed you that you'll be getting a email with a password, so a welcome email with a password reset prompt. And once you have access to that system and you step into the supplier portal, you're basically in real time going to be able to see all these things that we as purchase officer, Camden officers would, or your buyer would as and when they're making their changes. So what I'm trying to say is you'd get to see your PO, your invoices, and your remittances in real time without any delay. And so yeah, having said that, I'll step into them and just give you an idea. So the other thing of, so actually this is the URL that you will be receiving in that welcome pack email, so you're able to log on for the first time. And as Daniel recommended, I would suggest you use the preferred browsers, Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, and that you bookmark this page as well, so it's easily accessible to you when you want to log in. Right. So once you've typed in your URL, this is the landing page that you're going to see. Your email will be the email that we've most likely been communicating with you thus far, and it's the email that you set up with us when you were getting registered as a supplier. And obviously, the password will be whatever you reset your password to be, so your own unique password. And once you click on the sign in button, so I'll actually go back. I didn't mean to press that. So yeah, once you selected your sign in button, it will land you on this page, as Daniel said. It might not always necessarily be the case. It could potentially be the first time that you're actually logging in, you might land on this page. But if you do, please do not panic. For the most part, this is not the, you can ignore everything here. The only thing that you need to focus on is, and you'll see this little icon throughout your, throughout all the Oracle pages that you visit, more or less. So whenever you click on the home icon, it will land you on the page that you actually really need to be on, which is your main landing page. And you'll the good afternoon page, basically, if you want to remember it in any way, or where you have your supplier portal icon. Yeah. And this is the area that you're going to need to step in to be able to view your POs, invoices, and remittances. So if click on that, it will land you on your supplier portal page, and you can see on the left-hand side, the tasks pane is extended. If it's not already, you can use this little button here to extend it. And once you do, you'll see a set of subheadings, orders, agreements, shipments, invoice payments, and company profile, which Daniel will take you through later on. The main areas I'm currently focused on are the ones that are highlighted. So the manage orders under the orders section, and the view invoices and view payments under invoice payments section. The information on the right hand side you can largely ignore, but if you are curious about it, all your pie chart is basically showing you is the invoices that are overdue, and in accordance with the color code, and the blue one is schedules overdue or due today. But the reason I'm saying you can largely ignore is because this detail here you'll be able to see throughout through the tasks menu anyways. And obviously you've got a little box here to just show you your most recent activity and a transaction report. So this will just give you, can tell you your purchase order amounts. But like I said, you'll be able to do that in far better and more detail when you go into the tasks menu on the left-hand side. Yeah. Right, moving on to the next slide. I'm going to be, I believe, showing you what the manage orders page looks like. Yeah. So the moment you click that manage orders hyperlink, you are landed on this page. So you can see the top part gives you search fields that you can use. So you have your purchase order. If you know your purchase order, you can use it. You can type it in, and most likely that is going to be the case, because when it comes to a buyer raising a purchase order, an email will go out to you as before. That does not change. So the moment you get that document, you can always key it in into this search field and be able to see what you want to see about that PO. Right. The next, and obviously at the bottom of this page here, it's going to show you the search results once you do your search. You don't necessarily have to key in a specific PO as well. If you want to see a list of the POs that have been given to you thus far, you could just leave this order field blank and press the search button, and it will bring a list of all the POs. Just bear in mind, if you do that, it will bring so you can see the include closed documents field here is currently put on no. So if I were to do a search as it stands now, it would only bring open orders for me. Whereas you have the option to change that to a yes, and if you do that, then it will bring your closed off POs as well. Depending on whether you're trying to do historically check all the POs that you've been given, it's just something you need to bear in mind. And the other thing is, on the search results, you can see the purchase order, you can see who's raised your PO, so some of the key information, you can see the value it's been raised for, and you can see the status as well. So there will be an array of statuses. Hopefully you are aware of them, but if not, not to worry. The support material is going to decrypt what these mean for you from your point of view. So open, closed for invoicing, closed for receipting will be some of the examples that you'll be seeing. The other thing of note is the creation date as well. So that tells you when the PO was created, which is straightforward. And just one thing to note now, but we'll look at it later, is the order life cycle. So you're currently seeing this little icon here. When we actually go into the system, which I will be demoing for you, that has at a glance the information that you want to know about. How much was it raised for? How much has been receipted? What's been invoiced against it? Has my requisitioner or buyer done what they said they would with regards to receipting or amending a PO? So you'll be able to check these and keep an eye on them, and be able to communicate with your buyer about it. Okay. So I'll move on now to the next slide. The next slide is the view invoices slide. So as promised, you are able to see your invoices and where in the process they are with regards to payment. So again, you can see on the top, you have a list of search fields. Now, one thing I want to point out that wasn't on the PO one, but is on this one here, is that you can see there are two asterisks near some of the fields, and on the right hand corner here where my mouse is hovering, it says at least one is required. So just to give you an example, if for example you had a payment number and you wanted to do a search, you can't just do a search with the payment number because the payment number is not a mandatory field. You have to select one of these mandatory fields before you can run the search. So that's what it's trying to tell you, one of the asterisks. And the best way around this, just to give you a little tip, is because when you log in, you're logging as yourself. So for example, in this case, the supplier is 3 Brooms Inc. You can just use the drop down there, select 3 Brooms Inc. There won't be another list of suppliers that you have to select from anyways, because like I said, you are actually logged in as yourself. It will only bring your supplier name on that section there. So you could bypass that, bypass it by populating that, and then you can put the specific payment number that you were curious about. It's just giving you an idea of how you'd get around it if you had something that wasn't, a piece of information that wasn't one of the mandatory fields. Right. So anyway, once you run the search, you will get a list of all the invoices, provided that, provided you haven't specified an invoice number or a payment number. If you just run the search on supplier, then it will bring all your invoices. And actually, that's the way we've brought this, just to show you the different statuses that you can have in your invoices. But to give you a quick run through, you've got your invoice number, your invoice date, the purchase order number you were given. So you can see in here, you have unpaid amount, invoice amount, and payment number. So if the unpaid amount is 0, that means that it's been paid, because another indicator that your invoice has been paid as well is that a payment number will actually populate in that column. And your payment number is what you might know as your BACS reference number. Yeah, so that's just something to note. Right, and you can see some of the, I just went ahead too far, sorry. You can see some of the invoices here are showing you a held or on hold status. So these ones are the ones that haven't gone through yet. And, for example, you could potentially take the PO number 644, try to find out why the invoice hasn't gone through. So is it a case of, has the PO not been receipted? You will be able to see the information in exactly the same way that we would. Yeah. Okay, I will move on now to the next slide. And the next slide, view payments, is basically if you wanted to replace view payments with view remittances, nobody would begrudge you, because that's essentially what it is. And as you can see, again, the view payments has a search fields at the top, and your search results will be populated at the bottom. And as before, just keep an eye out for asterisks anywhere on Oracle search fields. So again, if you knew the specific payment number or the BACS reference, you can do a search by that. You can do a search by payment status, but if you did a payment status search, then you need to make sure that one of the mandatory fields are populated. So I'm just giving you an idea. Or you could just do a search, a general search using your supplier name, and that will bring all the payments for you. And you could potentially even reorder them. So these columns can be reordered by ascending or descending. And not only that, you can actually export these these transactions into Excel as well. So if you wanted to do further housekeeping or keeping things for your record, etc., or reconciliation, then that would make it easy for you on your side. Okay. One more thing to mention as well is this particular supplier doesn't have an example of it, but occasionally instead of an invoice number, you will see something that says multiple that's grayed out. That just means that there are multiple invoices on that back reference or that payment number. So you will be able to drill down further and be able to see, what invoices constitute the amount that you're actually seeing on the right, on the column payment amount. So that's just something to bear in mind. The other thing as well is you're obviously able to see your remit to account detail as well. So you can always use it as a verification to check if, for example, I don't know, you might be in the middle of a changeover between bank details, and it just allows you to see where exactly it's going to be paid. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so I'm going to pop out of this slide for a minute so I can give you an actual live demo of what we just saw on these slides. And again, hopefully it will highlight as to how easy it is to navigate on these pages as well. So please bear with me one moment. Okay, just need to refresh my page. Okay, so you must, by now, hopefully, from some of our slides, you're familiar with this page. And you can see exactly as we presented on the slide, this would be your main landing page. And if you haven't been landed on this page, then you would go to the home icon and it will bring you to this page. And there's pretty much only one thing you can actually do in this page, and that is click on your supplier portal icon. So I'll do that now. Right. So again, as before, you have your tasks section under orders. We can see one of the key areas that we'll be looking at, the manage orders section. And under invoice and payments, you can see view invoice and view payments. So view payments being your remittances. And the information as per before as well, the requiring attention, recent activity and transaction reports will be there for your viewing. Right, so I will start off by going in to check a purchase order. So the process with regards to this is we'd select the manage orders hyperlink. And that should bring us into familiar territory, what we saw on the slide. In this case, I have a dummy PO that I'm going to use. So if you bear with me one moment while I copy it. So notice I haven't worried about anything with regards to asterisks because this page doesn't have asterisks. I can just do a direct search for the PO that I'm looking for. Another way as well is if I just wanted to see a list of all the POs, then I could do a search and bring up a list of all the POs that have ever been raised against me as a supplier. So in this case, I know the specific PO that I want to query. And if you remember on the slide, we've covered some of these points, the purchase order, the person that's raised the order or your buyer, the value it's been raised for, the status and creation, but we stopped shy of actually the life cycle. So just to give you a demo, I'm just going to hover my mouse over the icon there, and you can see at a quick glance, you can see the order was raised for £100, pending fulfillment, £100, invoiced £100. Yeah, but if I wanted to see this PO in more detail, I can actually select this life cycle button. So if I click on it, it will land me on this page here which gives me a bar graph, and if I hover over this bar graph, again, it tells me the value of my PO and what's been invoiced so far. So you can see ordered. You can use your color codings here, but so a quick way of being able to tell, for example, if your buyer had done their receipting as promised, would be that a yellow bar would appear here that would match the purple bar exact in height, which means that it's also been receipted for £100. And then you can have, once the your buyer's done that, then the three-way matching is undergone and you can get paid. So that's just a way of tracking things. The other thing as well is, unfortunately, on this PO there aren't any receipts created, but you can see every individual receipt created against your PO for you, and you can see every individual invoice that you've ever submitted against this particular PO as well, along with the status and whether it's been paid or not. So you can see under the paid column, it's 0. In this case, nothing's actually been paid and the invoice is currently held. Yeah. So that would be how you view your PO. One other thing, bear with me one moment. Actually, no, that's it. Yeah. So once you've done that, you can press the done button, and that should take you back to your supplier portal page. And for the next demo, what I'll do is I'll go and have a look at some invoices, so we can view our invoices. So again, you would click on the view invoices hyperlink. And if you know your invoice number or any of the other details, fantastic, great, you can key it in. In fact, invoice number, supplier, and purchase order number are mandatory. So one of these has to be populated at least. But if you wanted to run through a list of all the invoices, for example, that have been submitted, then you could just leave everything blank. Oh, I just, sorry. So I literally made the mistake that I told you not to make here. So if you remember, 2 asterisks mean that one of the fields have to be populated. So at least one of them needs to be populated. But if you wanted to run a generalized report, just against your supplier number would be the best option. And once I press search, hopefully this time, yeah. It will bring a list of invoices that have currently been submitted against that, against that yourselves or this particular supplier, in this case 3 broomsticks. So again, we can see the invoice number, invoice date, as we did on the slides, the purchase order. A quick way of interpreting that, whether an invoice has been paid or not, if you remember earlier on, is you will have a payment number near it if it's been paid. And technically, I don't want to ruin the sequence of this demo here, but if you see anything with a hyperlink, so in this case, you can see the payment number is a hyperlink, you could technically select it, and it would take you to the remit page, which we haven't got to yet, but it's just a quick shortcut, if you like, of how to get there. So, or even whenever, for example, you see an invoice, you click on it, you'd get more information about that particular invoice or transaction. Okay. So that's how you would view your POs. One other thing I think I stated in the slides anyway, but I'll say it again, your invoice status can be monitored as well, and you can sort these columns in accordance to ascending or descending. So you can see when I hover over invoice number, these 2 arrows appear, and I can use each one accordingly. Or if in a situation where I have a payment number and some of the fields are blank, then I could just cluster together all the invoices that have, all the ones that have a payment number on there. So you can arrange it, and as before, you can actually export as well. Okay, so that's how you'd view your invoice. So once you've done that, I press the done button, and the done button will bring me back to the supplier portal. And finally, I can show you the remittance. So under invoices and payments, again, view payments has a hyperlink. So if I click on the hyperlink, it brings back, it lands me on the view payments page. And as before, if I know my BACS reference, great, fantastic. If I don't, then I just need to make sure that I use one of the mandatory fields in conjunction with something else. Or you could just use one of the mandatory fields. In this case, to make things simpler, supplier, I'll go by supplier name. And if I do a search, it lists a list of all the invoices that have been paid, because it will only bring back the ones with the payment number on them. So whilst there is a shortcut on the previous page that I showed you, if you went in through this option, then it would only exclusively bring invoices that have been paid. So it's just a way of not having to sort things out yourself, and you might as well use the system. And as before, just be mindful that sometimes under invoice number, you'll see multiple. If you do, then you need to drill in further into the payment number to be able to see the list of invoices that constitute the amount. Yeah, and as before, you have your cleared status and your remit to account as well for verification. One thing I wanted to mention while I'm on this point is the payment date. So initially, I could forgive you if you went into the system and you were checking on your invoice and you noticed the payment date says the 27/10/20, but you still appear to have not been paid, and it's it's the 28th and you still haven't been paid. That's because the payment date is the date that it leaves Camden's bank account. It doesn't mean the date that physically hits your account. In order to work out when it would physically hit your account, you would have to add 3 working days, including the 27th, to get your actual physical payment date in your account date. Yeah. So when you see that and you realize you haven't been paid yet, don't panic. It does take 3 working days. Okay. I think that about covers what I wanted to show you in the supplier portal section. Company profile will be covered by my colleague Daniel for you. Bear with me one moment now. I'm just going to pop back into my slides. Okay. Okay. So just to summarize what we've gone through the slides and the quick demo I put through for you, hopefully, as you've seen, it's fairly easy and logical to navigate. But please remember, you're not in this on your own. We will support you all the way through. And Daniel has shown you an array of support systems that we put in place to assist you during this period as well. And some of you will no doubt have contacted purchase to pay in the past. That will still carry on during and after your cutover period. So do not panic. We will give you all the time and training that you need. And as you saw from Daniel's manual, the quality of the manuals as well have been created in such a fashion that they're easy to follow. Excuse me. Okay, so to summarize, we went through the view orders and I just showed you the navigation. So, you land on your supplier portal page, you click on manage purchase orders, you either do a search for your PO or you can do a broad search like I told you, like I showed you in the demo as well, and it populates your results for you. And likewise with invoices, from your supplier portal page, you click on invoices, you put in the invoice number, or again, you can bypass that in the fashion that I showed you if you wanted to do a generalized, look at everything search, and you press your search button. And when it comes to your remittances, again, in the same fashion, so it all starts from the same place, supplier portal, and then view payments. You'd select yourself as a supplier. That's the only option there is, and you'd hit your search, and it will populate your search results for you. Moving on, just to cover a few things of note. I've mentioned them throughout as well, but it's just something to remember, and you have this slide to always refer to as well. But any fields marked with 1 asterisk must be completed, so please remember. If you run a search without one of these, then it will just not bring anything back. And fields marked with 2 asterisks, only one field needs to be completed, basically. And then you also know how to run your search in conjunction, with these double asterisk fields, basically. So if you had something else that wasn't part of the asterisk, the double asterisk, then you know how to bypass it as well. And obviously your training will teach you a whole lot more. Remember, this isn't actually training, this is us demoing it, so hopefully you're not scrambling to make a note of these, but just keep them in mind. Right. One other thing I wanted to cover is important cutoff dates for your current invoice submission. So Daniel gave you an overview of the tranches and how they've been separated and the timelines. So I'll just cover some of the points again. So again, most of you fall into tranches 1 and 2 with regards to this cutover. So tranche 1's cutover is the 7th of December 2020, and we'd ask that you ensure your final invoices reach Sheffield the 25th of November 2020. And with regards to tranche 2, your cutover date is going to be the 14th of December. And again, your final invoice is to reach Sheffield by the 2nd of December. And tranche 3 shouldn't be applicable to anybody on this meeting here, but just for your informational purposes, is due for a cutover on the 11th of January. And final invoices to reach Sheffield will be 21st of December 2020. And I understand that at least a majority of you here, if not all of you, will have received some email communication with regards to this as well. And yeah, so that brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. I just wanted to say thank you all again. I can't reiterate, and I appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us today on today's meeting. Daniel, over to you.
Hi there all. I'll try and make the last part as quick as possible for you. Just let me present my screen. So all I'm going to do is show you the final bit of functionality. So I'm going to log in to Oracle, our finance system. This is exactly the same login process you'll do. You'll notice I've saved the hyperlink into my browser, so I'm just going to click on that. And then I'm going to log in. So as Benim said, the user ID is always your email. Okay, and I'm in the system. Again, as Benim said, all of your functionalities is behind this orange icon. So I'm going to click on the supplier portal icon. I don't have any graphs here. This is a dummy supplier with no invoice history, so there'll be no data there. So the final thing to show you is the manage profile. I'm not going to show you at length, literally just to give you a look and feel kind of overview. So you can see, in effect, you can view the entire supplier record we hold for you, from your supplier name to your addresses, to your bank account. I have a dummy bank account in here. So it's very easy for you to check that we have the correct data for you. Let's just very briefly show you how to edit it. So almost any of the fields are editable by you as a supplier. So you just click the edit button. Of course, there'll be support materials for this. The only takeaway I want you to have is that it can be done and that you can view it. I'm going to click on addresses. And the ORD order address relates to your purchase order, and the pay address relates to your remittance advice. So let's say you weren't receiving your remittance advice, or you'd stop receiving it. You could click on that address name, And then here we've got the email address that your remittance goes to. And it's as simple as typing something new in there and then clicking OK. It's not quite immediate. Obviously, we take great care of your data. So when you make a change, it will come through to us to approve before it goes live. So roughly 24, 36 hours later, any change you make here will go live. So that's the final piece of functionality. If you do have any questions, feel free to add them to the comments. I don't think any have come in on this particular call, but if something comes to mind at any point from now until the 7th, when the help desk becomes live, please just reply to the invite that you received, and a member of the project team will get back to you. Okay. I'd just like to a closing comment, really. Obviously, it's been a difficult year for everyone, both ourselves and for you, our suppliers. As a local authority, it is our responsibility to provide essential services, and we couldn't do that without you. And I just wanted to extend a heartfelt thanks to you as suppliers, because it's quite rare we get a chance to talk to you, just to thank you for working with us through a very difficult time. And thank you for your time this afternoon as well. And I look forward to working with you over this transition period. Thank you very much.